Soul is fire. From a slow simmer to a beautiful braise. Soul is sweet perfection and salty, spicy, saucy goodness. Soul is buttery smooth, melt in your mouth, and oh my. Discover our soul in Jackson, Mississippi, the city with soul.
You miss me? The truth is, I miss me too. This season, we show you why Jackson is the city with soul.
I've talked to seasoned business owners, a high-end custom fashion designer, and an entertainment mogul. And the food. Don't get me started on the food. I know y'all love LA, New York, Atlanta, yada, 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 but right now, this is about Jackson, Mississippi. I'm talking Mediterranean, Thai food, French cuisine, Caribbean. I mean, shit, I keep going.
It's clear that Jackson got something to say, and Dirty Napkins is here to say it. So get ready. Let's get some napkins dirty. What is influence? Money, notoriety, fame? Well, today's guest knows a little about all three. We're here at Godfery's North, and I'll be having a conversation with Chokwe Lumumba, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. Being an elected official is never easy, but this brother makes it look good. He comes from a pristine legacy, and I'm eager to talk all things Jackson. So tune in. Let's go get some napkins dirty. So you're just telling me a little bit about the food you like and stuff like that. And I want to talk a little bit about, you were telling me about the link between like food and people almost. You were talking to your wife, Ebony, and I guess her dissertation she wrote around food. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Her dissertation, she got her PhD from Ole Miss.
Okay.
And her dissertation was on foodways and mothering in the global South. And it really focuses on the importance of food, not only in the raising of our children, you know, the love it demonstrates in the actual household itself, but as an expression or an extension of love to those that you invite into your home. And that is why, you know, when we look across the diaspora, you know, we find, you know, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's on the continent itself, or whether it's in Jackson, Mississippi, that our people put so much love into their food. And so where often people have very little to offer, you know, tangibly, that food is an extension of what they're offering to you. And so sometimes, you know, while we're enjoying, we fail to realize just how beautiful and impressive it is.
Excuse me. Hey, guys.
Yeah.
How you doing? All right. What's going on, my man?
Doing great, doing great, doing great.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming today. How's everything?
Everything is great as usual, man. You never miss.
Wonderful.
You never miss.
I wish I didn't have the interview to do. I keep just rolling. I'm telling you, this is good.
Right, the good thing is to go,
Yeah.
eat what you need, close it up, and eat it later on in a private setting.
Yeah, you cook this with love. I can taste it.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate it.
He's not going to do any work after this. It's going to be all done.
This could probably be all she wrote for me.
Half a day, and it's for the rest for tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, so how long have you guys been here?
This location, we've been here since November of last year, and looking to open up a big one in Flowood, July the 15th of this year. So just spreading the love.
Nice.
We're really proud of Chef Godfery. You know, just the investment he's made in Jackson, and he's quickly become, you know, one of our local favorites.
Yeah.
You know, just with the you know, the love that he puts in the food.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, they never miss.
No, they
never
don't.
miss.
And the name rings bells. I'm telling you, like everybody around town is, oh, you gotta have Godfery's. You gotta go to Godfery's. So.
And you know what helped to drive that is the love of the people. You know, the way people gravitate around what I do every single day just push me to do more. And you know, so this still come. We're never gonna stop.
If it wasn't good, they wouldn't love you that much.
You're totally right to
I'm
that.
telling you, I can
love
tell
you from
why
a
they love
distance.
you. I know why I love you, because I love you now. You know, I love you now for sure. Yeah, but.
Well, we appreciate you, my man.
I appreciate you. As
All right.
again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, so just picking it back up, right? So you talk about comfort food and all of that, and then, so when you think about the South and just like Southern hospitality, are the way we offer up food is almost like, you know, giving a person a piece of you. You know,
Yeah.
Somebody comes to stay with you, you cook them breakfast or you cook them dinner, you fry fish for them, whatever that might be, as an extension of, hey, I'm welcoming you into my home.
Yeah, even the culture around the food is how I personally define the Mason-Dixon line, or what makes the South.
Explain that to me.
So I went to, and you know, first of all, let me be clear that I have, you know, much love for, you know, places like Houston, Texas, where I went to law school. But I would often joke that if I couldn't get sweet tea in every establishment I went to, that you weren't the South. You may be Southwest, right? But you're not the South unless I can get sweet tea.
I got you.
And if you tell me I have tea, but you can put sugar in it, you
That
don't
ain't
get
sweet
it.
tea.
Right? That's not sweet tea. So, you know, it's you know, it's beautiful and, you know, interesting, just the diversity of you know, how some cultures, you know, show love, and the habits that they have with their food, you know, even amongst, you know, black communities.
Yeah.
You know, how people cook in Carolina and how they barbecue is different than how they do it in Memphis, Tennessee.
True.
Right? And it's things that are passed down generation to generation. And I think that, you know, that's the inheritance that we often have is you know, grandma's cookbook.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's beautiful.
I got a question for you. You talk about like inheritance and stuff like that. Off the wall question here, but you strike me as a man like forward thinking. We were talking about some things in the line. Would you prefer to meet your ancestors, or would you prefer to meet like your future lineage? Right? Let's say 100 years from now, who would you prefer to meet?
That's a deep question. You know what I'll say? I think that my future lineage, if I am honoring my responsibility well enough, I should be able to meet them in my actions. You know, they should be able to. I should see a reflection of myself if I'm doing that correctly. So I would actually answer, you know, my ancestors. You know, there's some people I would like to talk to. You know, Sister Harriet Tubman. You know, who, you know, not only was a real life hero, right? Like we talk about superheroes.
Yeah.
You know, she was a real life superhero, and I think, you know, we've had some people do some really powerful things, but you know, someone who freed 1,000 slaves.
Yeah, that's
you know?
a lot.
You know, and her slogan was, "I freed 1,000 slaves, and I would have freed 10,000 if only they knew that they were slaves." Right?
That's deep.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful, and it still speaks today, right? In
think
so
so?
many ways. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that sometimes, you know, as a part of our oppression, you know, we're often blinded and locked out of spaces that we don't know the depth of all of the ways in which we are oppressed, and sometimes, you know, what we try to gravitate to as, in essence, as freedom, is emulation of the same oppression, and you know, we don't want to switch slave masters. We don't want to be slaves. None of us.
Now, fair point. When you say stuff like that, it makes me think about like hip hop. Makes me think about like rappers. Obviously, I know based off of age, right? Who do you listen to?
So I would say that Crit is probably my favorite.
Okay.
I like J. Cole.
Okay.
I definitely like Kendrick. The new
one?
video that he just released.
Yeah, that was good.
Is ridiculous.
That was good. Yeah.
So I love that, and you know, love old school hip hop. So had the great honor of my father representing Tupac growing up, and so, you know, I love his work and love the meaning behind his work. But I get down with some less conscious stuff too.
Do you really?
I work out to the,
What do you work out to?
To the ratchet hip hop. You know?
That's cool. That's cool. That's good.
That
Humanize you a little bit.
That keeps me going.
Humanize you a little bit.
You gotta have some, some Boosie. Which I'll say this: when I was in high school, a good friend of mine who's a little older than me, he went to Southern in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
So I remember Boosie before he was even really walking Jackson and everybody knew him. I remember him with the camp, right? And so I've been following him for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You talk about your father, right? And switching gears a little bit. Your dad was the mayor prior to you, correct? Right?
Not immediately
Well, not
before
yet.
me, but yeah.
Is that what drove you to become mayor?
Yes and no. I'll share that, I didn't grow up with a lifelong goal that I wanted to grow up and be mayor one day.
Okay.
It was heavily emphasized and a part of my upbringing to be involved in community. In fact, our parents taught us, it was kind of a motto that you have a value for family, you have a value for community, and you value the community as a family, right? And that has both been literally and figuratively my experience in Jackson, Mississippi. I think we talked, earlier where I said, my only blood relatives in Mississippi consist of my sister and my 2 little girls. But I've been here since I was 5 years old. So I've spent more time with the people in Jackson than I have my blood relatives who predominantly live in Detroit and in DC on my mom's side. But we spent most of our time growing up at the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination and Self-Defense on the corner of Martin Luther King and Randall, where we would do day camps for children. We would do political education. We had a basketball program, the Jackson Panthers, right? Yeah. Before that, we were the Malcolm X Warriors.
The basketball team.
Yeah, our basketball team. And our plays, we didn't say 1 or 2. We yelled out Garvey, X, King, like those were our plays, right? No.
Were you coaching them or?
No, I was playing at that.
You were playing.
Yeah,
so you used to hoop?
I used to hoop. Yeah, I played at Callaway.
Were you good? You could tell me.
I had an amazing shot. I ain't never have no athleticism. I had some college scholarships actually.
Oh wow! So you were straight.
But I wasn't like some D1 scholarships too. But I wasn't like a lot of my, some of my associates. Like I played with Maurice Williams.
Okay.
I played with Darius Rice. These are people who were looked at on the pro level and played both, in the NBA and internationally. I wasn't going there, Yeah.
Well, you found the right calling, though.
Yeah.
So, and to talk about it some more, I want to go a little deeper here, right? So you talk about growing up on the corner, well, not growing up on the corner, like Malcolm X and Garvey and doing that type of work. And your father was coined as like a civil rights attorney, but you told me, right, he would prefer to be called a human rights attorney.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think the distinction there is that civil rights are those rights that you obtain only through laws and judicial processes, right? Civil means provide you civil rights. There are some rights that we deserve by virtue of just being human beings, right? We deserve the benefit of self-determination, the benefit of deciding your destiny and the benefits you want to enjoy in life. And I think that is a principle base, not only in my life, but in my style of leadership, is that I'm trying to give people more access to their own governance and democratize power. How do we give people, more say-so and how we look at the infrastructure and address infrastructure? Those are the type of things that we have to do. And I think that not only should apply for Jackson, but I think that we often miss that internationally in terms of our representation.
Sure. What does democratizing power mean, right? Like I get conceptually, but talk to that a little bit.
So I'll give you kind of a tangible example of it. We believe in people's assemblies, right? Assemblies where we bring big issues that are taking place in the city and put it before the people to not only inform them, but to receive information back from them. We believe in the expansion of participatory budgeting. A budget is one of the fundamental responsibilities of electoral leadership, is to deal with that. And so in my opinion, it is a moral document that should reflect our values as a community. And so we need to make sure that we're not scratching where people aren't itching. We need to make certain that we're funding the things that people value most. And so that's democratizing power, that it isn't about, electing somebody and then walking away from that process thinking that they're brilliant enough, right, to solve all of those issues for you. But how are we doing this collectively, benefiting from our collective genius, right, in order to solve these problems?
And to keep that going, I saw you on TV, you were talking about, it looks to me as if you were trying to get something passed, right? I'm not the most political person, right? But maybe like additional funding, I think it was all centered around like the police crisis. And I don't know if we want to call it a crisis, right? But you were really passionate about the fact of, you're like, hey, I passed this bill, or I tried to pass this, I wanted additional funding, but we couldn't get any help from state leadership or anything like that. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, I'm very grateful for you asking that question, because it allows me to clear up something too, right? So it was reported that I blamed Jackson's, violent crime surge on the state, which I didn't, right? First and foremost, I think that the problem is bigger than any one person, entity, and it desires our collective responsibility and shared sacrifice to deal with, right? Okay. But what I acknowledged is, while there is often critique of the city of Jackson from state leadership, that, as we've asked them to put their money where their mouth is, they failed to do so, right? We've asked for money for ballistics ID technology, so officers can take shotgun shells or bullet shells and run them through, so that it shortens the time between connecting it between, shooting events, right? Okay. We've asked for more money for cameras. We've asked for, resources that could help, supplement the salaries of our officers, right? And all of these things have been declined. Yet and still, we look at Jackson and say, well, Jackson, you have a problem, right? But we're not trying to work in conjunction, to solve this. We look at the challenge that, open carry has in Jackson. Okay. When someone has an illegal weapon and open carry is the law of the land, then it is difficult for law enforcement to determine lawful ownership and possession of a weapon versus the illegal and often unlawful, possession of a weapon or ownership of the weapon. And so those are things that lead to the oversaturation of guns in our community, that ultimately lead to guns in the hands of the youngest demographics that are operating with the limited judgment of youth, but dealing with adult situations, and we see the violence that we see in our communities.
So when we talk about like lack of support or things like that, some people would say that Jackson started losing support around the time where, I guess, Harvey Johnson beat Kane Ditto, or I think eventually Charlotte Reeves or something like that. You think that's fair to say? I
think it's honest, and some people dislike you for being honest, right? But I feel that I owe the people honesty, right? Okay. That doesn't mean that we don't all share a responsibility to build it back up. It doesn't mean that we can't correct the decisions of the past, but there was divestment in Jackson, right? There is a view of Jackson that I believe, whether consciously or subconsciously, leads to less funding because it is a majority black city. Okay. Because it is an urban environment versus a rural state, and there's a lot of disconnect in terms of what the needs of an urban environment are in comparison to a rural environment. And so those things, are perpetuated over time. Some people have suggested that my honesty has led to a lack of funding or a lack of support of those things. But, my response would be, well, what's the excuse for the last 40 years?
Yeah, right? Yeah. I was like, that don't make sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I gotta ask this question, right? You deal, I won't name drop anybody, but you deal with like a lot of conflict, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm impressed by the way you deal with conflict. When people come out and say negative things about you, and I mean by people, other politicians, right? They come out and say negative things about you throughout the course of your political career, when you were running for mayor, once you became mayor and things like that. How do you deal with conflict so well?
Well, let me say this first. I'm always trying to be introspective and even find room where I can improve, right? Okay. So, sometimes, I go in the corner with myself and say, look, I could have, responded a little differently to this, because I ultimately understand that it's not about me, right? It's bigger than me, and what we're able to accomplish demonstrates the ability of people who look like me to
Okay.
lead, right?
Okay.
And I think that often there is an effort to undermine that. And so that's one thing that checks me.
Okay.
And then, I had the unique opportunity to live in the household with my hero, right?
Yeah.
I saw my father as a disciplined listener, right? I saw him as an individual that was given to a calmer demeanor in very tense circumstances. And he was a humble person, right? And I think humility is a more attractive trait, not only in leadership, but in any relationship you're a part of.
Okay.
And so I think that that's the way that we should default, is towards humility and operating in that way. Right?
And that is a classy way to deal with it. But I gotta ask, do you not go home and be like, just talk to yourself or talk to your wife, like, man, these people got me messed up?
My wife gets it all. Right?
Yeah.
But what people don't fail to realize is that she's probably the more fiery one, right?
Okay.
So my wife is brilliant,
Yeah.
but she'll tell anybody that she chooses her role because she's not the diplomat, right?
I feel that. I feel that.
But I'm sure she feels the same way that my personality is different than my father's, right? So I share his political base, I share his ideology, but my personality is more like my mother's,
Okay.
right? And my mother felt that she owed you honesty. She would say, "Don't make me lie to you," right?
Okay.
And so, when you see those that you love, their efforts, you see the time that they spend, late at night or the early morning, hours, and then you see how people, sometimes come and attack that, then that leaves you kind of braced to defend them. And I've been guilty of that with my father, and I think my loved ones who, see whether it's in my household or whether it's, the team that I work closest with, they understand the hours we put in and how important it is to us. Yeah.
And speaking to like humility, you said humility is important to you, right? Some people have coined you as arrogant, right? Do you think that's fair?
I think that any black man with his own thought, right, that moves against what may be kind of the status quo or the lines that maybe state leadership and people continue to do, they have always been coined as arrogant. Malcolm X was coined as arrogant.
Radical.
Or radical. Medgar Evers, right? The reality is that I don't think that I'm better than anyone else, right? The reality is that I operate in love. The reality is that the people I'm most concerned are the least common denominator that have the fewest resources, right?
Okay.
But the ones that call me arrogant are those that are in the leadership, and because I dare to disagree with someone in higher office than me,
Okay.
because I dare to fight against what I think is wrong, then that makes me arrogant. Okay. And if that is what makes me arrogant, then I'm okay with it.
Soul is history that moves you, saying, remember this day. Soul is the spirit inside each of us that never gives up. Soul is a voice that says, listen to me. Discover our history, our spirit, our soul in Jackson, Mississippi, the city with soul.
So I look from the outside looking in, and to me, it seems as if being a mayor is a really stressful job, right? Why, I guess, let's start here. Why become mayor?
Well, I don't think that I, sought to become the mayor because I thought it was easy, right? I'm really committed to the work of seeing, a better Jackson. That means a lot to me. And so that's in essence the reason is why I do it. Okay. The actual work itself, while there's a lot of things that we have to cover and there's some significant challenges, the actual work I enjoy, right? I enjoy problem solving. Okay. I think some of the unnecessary fights that we get into is less desirable to me, and so that I think sometimes we spend too much time, marred in those type of disagreements. But in terms of the work, I enjoy that, and what I was doing prior to wasn't necessarily lacking in stress either. I was doing
what was that?
Criminal defense work. I did, murder cases and all of those things, and so those are really intense situations, and it's a lot of work, a lot of hours that happen long before you get into a courtroom.
I got you. How does this weigh? I know you mentioned about how supportive your wife is, but even a step further than that, your kids, how does this weigh on your family life? Like, what's the work-life balance like? I mean, I'm imagining it has to be difficult.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we're ships passing in the night, right?
Okay.
But we find opportunity to make sure that we steal moments, and while sometimes the quantity of time may not be an option, the quality of time is always an option, and so we are very intentional around that. I can say that most days when I get home and I'm home to catch my girls, it's a parade every time I get home, right? So they're at that age where they're just excited and run into the door, 8 and 4, and so that always lifts my spirits. I see so much of my parents in them, right? Not only from physical appearance, but personality-wise, and so that's a beautiful thing. And so my wife, I enjoy watching all the areas of her work and creativity. Not only is she the chair of the English department at Jackson State, she's a writer herself, and she's an artist. She paints, right? Some of the paintings in our home, she painted, and so she finds ways to steal joy and capture some solace for herself.
And I want to ask this question and try and help me figure this out, right? Your name, Chokwe Lumumba, like what is the
derivation? Yeah.
Beautiful word.
I got you.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
So Chokwe is the name of a tribe in Angola. And the Chokwe were never captured by the slave trade. And so that's a beautiful history. The name means hunter. They are also known as great artists. And so you can often see Chokwe masks, which often depict human hair through straw, or so if you see an African mask that has that, then it's a good likely that it could potentially be a Chokwe mask. So my middle name is Antar. Some people mix the two. I'm not a junior actually, because my father was Chokwe Lumumba, and I'm Chokwe Antar Lumumba, and my mother was insistent on that clarification, so I do that for her. So Antar means warrior and poet, and I was named after a friend of my father's who died while trying to save a woman from drowning. He was able to save her, but he drowned himself, and so it was in honor of his friend. And Lumumba means gifted. Lumumba comes from the Congo, and it comes from Patrice Lumumba, who was the first prime minister of the Congo, who was assassinated while trying to advance his people. He was assassinated by the Belgian government, and in combination with some other governments, right? Gotcha. So, we know from scripture that the power of life and death is in the tongue, right? So it would stand to reason that what we call ourselves and how we refer to our loved ones, we're speaking into their lives something every moment that we're talking to them. And so I thank my parents for speaking into me that I would be a hunter, a warrior, a poet, and I would be gifted, right? Those are things that we look at when we capture the meaning of our names. And so my father changed his name so that he could not only reattach himself to a lost legacy in history, but also capture the meaning that we often don't have in our names.
So he changed his name.
He changed his name. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he changed his name when he was in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wow, years ago.
Yeah. Some time ago.
Got you. Well, and the first run-in I saw what the name was, Lumumba Freeline and Associates,
yes,
right? And
yes.
I asked that not to have you go into like the law firm, but the Freelines part of that.
Yeah.
Right. I know Freelines is a nightclub.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's
that it is.
Okay.
That it is. So Harvey Freeline was my father's was associate in my father's firm. When I was a young child, and so later on, as he developed his business acumen, he purchased the building that the club is in, and he and my father became law partners. After my father moved out, I was briefly his law partner. And I later moved out of the building just because the footprint was a little bigger than what we needed for a law office. And so then I opened up Lumumba and Associates. Okay. But know Harvey well. Harvey's like a brother.
Have you spent time in free lunch?
You know, I've checked it out, you know, a few times.
As the mayor, like, do you get to frequent nightlife at all? Like, or
I hang out sometimes.
Do you?
I hang out sometimes.
Where do you like to hang out at?
4th Avenue is a spot, and I think Johnny T's. Johnny T's is kind of a, you know, a nice, you know, scene where you get some good food and the music is relaxing. So I enjoy that.
It's interesting you bring up 4th, right? When you were, when I was doing some research on you, right, you faced a little bit of criticism. I guess Drake came to town for a big event, and apparently the talk of the town was that the mayor was having a great time. You're standing on the couch, right? You know, do you think?
I was standing on the couch because there was no other place to stand.
Oh, okay, okay, fair.
But actually, the background in that is that someone called me and asked me would I present a proclamation to Drake. They asked the key to the city, and I declined, right? And that's because I think that the key to the city is the highest honor, and it's reserved for, you know, exceptional and specific work that garners attention and brings attention to the city of Jackson. I gave the key to the city to Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate You Give, right? Because she provided a thought-provoking body of work, later turning into a movie that made us all nationally and internationally question, you know, the issues of race and policing, you know, in this country and worldwide. And that's why I chose to do that. But when they called, I thought that it was appropriate to give a proclamation because his coming did represent economic development even for that day in the city of Jackson. And that's what my proclamation spoke to. It spoke to, you know, not only, you know, his own personal success, but you know, driving economic development in the city of Jackson by choosing and actually sacrificing, from what I understood, and not getting or commanding, you know, the type of, you know, return that he normally gets for his appearances. You know, he was more or less choosing that he wanted to come to Jackson. And from, you know, I also know people like CJ Gibson. You know, CJ and I went to high school together. He was below me. So I wanted to celebrate him. I still want to celebrate CJ. Plan on doing a proclamation for him.
Oh, nice.
Cortez Bryant, who is not from Jackson but went to Jackson State, has been influential in bringing Dion to Jackson State. You know, those type of things and those type of efforts are noteworthy, and they deserve recognition. And so, you know, in no way do I regret going. And then I'll tell you this.
It's Drake.
My
I mean,
team, yeah, and I like Drake's music too. That's, you know, I like Drake's music. But my team was really happy at that time. The media team was really happy to go.
Yeah,
right?
I bet.
Yeah.
Cool. And so I hate to ask you this. Well, I don't hate to ask you this, but in the same realm of entertainment, right? There's a show that aired still airing called Bell Collective. Apparently, you are the talk of the town on Twitter. They say you're really handsome. How does that make you feel?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm somebody's taste and other people's I'm not. Right? The point is, I'm Ebony's taste.
Yeah,
right?
Fair enough.
But
fair enough. Yeah.
So Tamara Cherie, actually, I won't tell her age, but she was ahead of me, right? But we went to elementary school together, right?
Nice.
And so we used to ride the bus together when we were really young, and so I've known her for a while.
Cool.
She asked if I would participate in that, and so I was happy to show her support. And you know, I go places sometimes where people know me more for that than other things. But you know, I wish the show much success, and I hope that it showcases Jackson in the best possible light.
Are you intentionally approachable? Right, like I know people necessarily can't get close to you per se because you're the mayor, but when you see you in public scenarios, even the way you came in here today, greeted everyone, are you, again, intentionally approachable?
I love people.
Okay.
I love people, and I don't feel that anything about my office belongs to me. This is their office, it's their city hall, and so, you know, that's just what I love. And so my team sometimes gets upset with me because I give my number to everybody, right? But I want to emphasize the fact that I'm accessible and approachable. And once again, I get that from my father, right? My father was the exact same way, right? Now, what I didn't like my father would do is that he would often give people my number, right, when I wasn't working at City Hall, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, but that was his way. He would give responsibility to 4 people because he knew one person would get it taken care of, right?
How does this take a toll on your mental health?
Hopefully, I'm mindful in that. I will admit that sometimes, I think we all kind of fail to appreciate our own mental and physical health.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this: the first time I ran and lost, I'm actually grateful that I lost. Right?
Okay.
I'm grateful that I lost because I was not only able to appreciate more that was happening with the city of Jackson, I was able to appreciate more that was happening with me personally, right? Within that time span, I had just lost my father, had the birth of our first child, right? And at the same time running for office. And so that was a lot to take on. And, I was really working and running at a unhuman pace, right?
Yeah.
And so, I've had more opportunity to grieve. I don't think you ever stop grieving losses of that magnitude and that close to you. I think you're able to put perspective day by day, how you carry on in spite of. But I still think about it. There are moments, I'm in a job that very few people that are in this area have either been in, and even that being the case, it's not necessarily one where you can just call them up and say, what would you do here? What would you do there? So I wish that I had the benefit of my father to say,
kind of lean on for the wisdom.
What would you do? Now, I will say that the Lord provides. So, I've developed, very sound relationships with other mayors.
Okay.
I'm really the mayor of Birmingham, the mayor of Shreveport, the mayor of Little Rock, New Orleans. We're all good friends.
Wow.
And we have a text group that we message and we bounce ideas off of each other. And so
that happens, like mayors, just what's called a mayor chat or something, or like.
So I don't know if it typically happens,
okay.
But it's happened with us, right?
That's what's up.
So I think the way it started, we were part of this Bloomberg Harvard Leadership Initiative, where 40 mayors from around the globe were selected to be a part of it. So we had, everybody from, at the time, Keisha Lance Bottom, the mayor of Atlanta, all the way to the mayor of Freetown, Sierra Leone, right? Mayors from Canada, from, England. We had the benefit to come and, just discuss leadership.
Yeah.
But it was a classroom setting. We were there for a week. It was, grueling and just everything you remember about going to school. We had to, actually read our cases. We were in a, before a professor. And so it was a bonding experience, not only kind of seeing how you think, but also understanding that your challenges are the exact same as mine. When we talk about crime, I'm able to talk to the mayor of Birmingham, the mayor of Shreveport, and find out that the exact same things are happening there, and the same. It looks the same, right?
Yeah.
It's amongst the youngest demographics. I'm able to see these things time and time again, and so I think that it's beneficial that I have people that I can bounce those ideas off of.
Sure. And that's a good point, because I want to ask you, right? When you think about this whole garbage situation that's unfolding, I can't sit here and tell you honestly, right? You're a man of honesty. I can't sit here and tell you honestly that I get it, right? I don't understand what the issue or the problem is. Could you explain this issue to me, as if I was a 5-year-old almost?
Yeah. Well, the issue is, there are rules.
Okay.
Right. These rules are given to us from the state, right? And if we don't honor those rules, then we get in trouble, right? We can get in financial trouble. We could even get in potential, criminal trouble if we don't abide by the rules in the way that they're supposed to, right? And so one of those rules is for a contract that is as big and as important and you pay as much public money into as your garbage contract, that you have to do a request for proposals, right?
Okay.
That means that you put out that this contract is becoming available.
Yep.
And you ask companies to submit, their proposal to you. And then they have to be scored, right? They have to be scored on price, which is the most heavily weighted factor.
Okay.
They have to be scored on, technical, past performance, all of those things. And all of those companies have to meet a minimal basic, performance to say that they can do it.
Okay.
And that happened. And so we have a company that won in a process. We have a company that we went above and beyond in order to ensure that there was transparency. We not only had community meetings before, we released the RFP. we gave we did blind scoring so that nobody would see what company A, B, or C, who they were, right?
Okay.
So that you're evaluating them just on, how they have proposed. Let it speak for itself. And so you had a company that was actually a black company, very rare, to win it, right? And more important to the residents is that they won at $12 million less than the next company, right? So
cost-wise?
Cost-wise, there's $12 million less, right?
Yeah.
With more.
Yeah.
So
we can use that $12 million.
So $12 million less. Well, you not only can use it, it'll hit home even worse than that. And they're offering a bin for every household. That $12 million isn't some $12 million that's just coming out of the city's budget. That is a fee that we're going to ultimately attach to your water bill, right? And you're going to have to pay the difference, right? So that's what it's about.
Okay.
It's about residents who we just raised water bills on because we had to, because the EPA and our bond insurers made us do it. And we need to bring in more revenue to capture and fix all the things that need to be fixed. But also now we know that our garbage rates are going to go up regardless. And so how do I save you $12 million that ultimately is going to be attached to the least common denominator? That's why it's so important, right? And so I'm faced with violating the law, charging our people more, right? And just doing the morally corrupt thing to do and going to the next one when the first company, has a legitimate, bid and everything else. And so that's why I'm standing my ground on it.
I completely understand. And throughout that process, a lot of back and forth and stuff like that. What do you think is the most out of character thing you've done as the mayor?
The most out of character thing? Well, I think that some people would say, calling into question the morality or the ethics of some of the council members, dealing with this contract. But I would say that at that time I thought it was important that people knew just what this was about and what those concerns are, right? Now, I think that, if I regret anything, I regret the distraction that it became for our residents in understanding what the issues are. And I feel that I have a responsibility to work with the council, but I feel that I am accountable to the people of Jackson. And that is who I will always maintain that I'm accountable to. And that's who I'm going to fight for.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good. And switching gears a little bit. So before you became mayor, you were an attorney, and I thought it was interesting, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it almost looks like you were an entertainment attorney or a sports attorney. That's what I'm looking for.
So I took advanced coursework in law school in sports and entertainment law and intellectual property. So I've advised some clients. We've had some pretty big name people in different areas. I told you my father, this was before I was an attorney, but he represented Tupac. But we also represented a reggae artist, Buju Banton, right? And I mean, that was more or less for criminal matters, but you get involved in some of the inner workings. There was some work we had to do around the Scott sisters and what they had a right to, and that was a little tricky because they were on parole. And so there's only so much that they could profit from at the time. But there was international interest in their story. And so, that has armed me, with an ability to look at that stuff. I had a cousin who had a relationship, and we talked for a brief while with Antonio Gates, who was looking to venture into other areas of preparing people for the draft and the value of that. And so there are various things that my work has taken me to, and it's very interesting.
So what does legacy mean to you then?
For me, legacy is the value of your name, right? And whether your name leaves people with a good feeling over your sincerity in the work you do. I think, it is the old adage is that people may forget, what you did. They may forget what you said. They'll never forget how you made them feel, right? And so that's ultimately, what legacy is. How did you make people feel? Whether your name carries with it, the type of sentiment of someone who really loved them and supported them. One thing that I will never forget is the day my father was laid to rest, and we had the services for him. And I remember leaving from the convention center on the way to the gravesite, and people following that story. And there was an unplanned parade that ultimately happened, right? It wasn't planned. People started to come out. We passed through Georgetown, the same area that we had the Malcolm X Center. People came out, they had Lumumba shirts on, they were throwing their fists in the air. That is more valuable to me. When we talk about contracts, right, and things like that, that's more valuable to me, than anything else, right?
Is that what drives you?
Absolutely. So the fact that my parents were intentional, in moving to Mississippi when we didn't have family here. My father came to Jackson, Mississippi in the late 60s, early 70s, right? To work with the Republic of New Africa, at that time fighting for self-determination, right? Fighting for communities to be empowered. And so we were raised in that way. My parents felt that giving us a sense of community was just as important as giving us food, water, and shelter, right? And so for me, the selfish part is, because that's what they emphasize, that keeps them alive for me. If I continue their work, then Chokwe and Nubia Lumumba are here with me. While I may not be able to see them in the flesh, I know that their spirits, are present and their work lives on. And so that's why that's important to me.
Okay. Well, and as I wrap this up, I know your time is valuable. What do you want the people of Jackson, right, to remember of you? Or what do you want that legacy to be with them?
Well, my prayer is that they see me as someone that was sincerely trying to give his part to a continuum of work that we're going to have to do, right? I would want them to know that I'm not capable of solving all of the problems, right? But I want them to be empowered, that they have certain demands of their leadership, me included, that continues, into time. And I hopefully we're able to solve some of these problems. Without getting, too philosophical, I think about the words of Amir Cabral, right? Who said the people aren't fighting for the ideas in your head, they're fighting for the right to win material benefits, right? And so people deserve to know that their children's education is going to be good. They deserve to know that when they go to turn on the water, that it is sustainable and that it's going to turn on and all those things. Unfortunately, those aren't the systems we were left, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to fight to make sure that we secure those things, and we have to fight for dignity. And so if there's a word, I represented their dignity. Okay.
You're the man for the job for that.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
I want to give you something before we let you go. Just a token of our appreciation here at the team's Dirty Napkins shirt.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Let you take that with you.
I will definitely rock it. All right,
good.
Yeah.
While you listen to some of that coal or something, some of
I
that
got you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it's been a pleasure. I can't tell you enough how much the team, myself, we appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us. But if there's anything else you'd like to leave the people with, where they can follow you, where they can follow your office or anything like that, please let us know.
Well, first and foremost, I thank you for the opportunity. I thank you for the invitation. I've enjoyed our conversation. I can be followed at Mayor Lumumba on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And they can always follow the City of Jackson first. We have at City of Jackson, Mississippi on all of those platforms as well, or the city's website. I think that is a place where they get the fullness of the stories that we try to put to our residents, and I would encourage them to do so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, my man.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right. Make sure you come back.
I will. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Mayor Chokwe Lumumba here at Godfery's North. Special thanks to the owner, Chef Godfery, for giving us a true experience into the Jamaican experience. Thanks to our sponsors. Your contributions allow us to spread awareness in local communities. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Dirty Napkins. Until next time, it's your host, Jay Taylor.